How do you do, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to something we are calling the History of Anthrocon.
Anthrocon Line.
Anthrocon Line. Whatever
that's
the heck.
a short history.
It's
This
a
is
short
Anthrocon.
history.
This is Anthrocon.
I have with me two folk who are extremely old, and they have...
Not as old as you.
Sorry. They have been at this a long time. I will let them introduce themselves and explain why they are on this, why they know the history of Anthrocon. We figured what we would do when we first decided what we were going to do for this panel exactly 45 seconds ago, that I would introduce myself. I am Uncle Kage. I have been chairman of this convention since 1998, and the first person out there to say I wasn't born yet, thank you very much. This organization, if you will, began as Albany Anthrocon in 1997. I went as an attendee in 1997.
Weren't you guest of honor?
I was guest of honor in 1998. And 1998, I went in as guest of honor and came out as chairman. I still don't know how that happened. So I have been around since the very beginning of what is now Anthrocon. So I've got the most tales of the history of Anthrocon. I will probably start off, since we're going to try to go relatively chronologically, but first allow me to introduce my fellow panelists. I shall start on my right, your left. Who the hell are you?
I am Susan Deer, also known as Sue the Deer, and this man tells a lie.
My stories are 105% true.
This man tells a lie because I was at Anthrocon 97 as well. You may have more stories, but it is because you have had more crap happen to you.
Well, it's not... Okay, I have more stories, but there's reasons for that.
That's true.
Who the hell are you?
I am Benny. I'm Benny Tiger. My first Anthrocon as attendee was 1998, which means Sue is the only person present who has been at every single Anthrocon. I was made staff shortly thereafter. It's kind of a blur. I showed competence near Kage. There was a problem with something. The next thing I know, they had a staff badge on me, which was funny because I had purchased a lifetime membership, something that we did as a young con where if you put a lot of money in, we were cash broke, that you would forever be able to attend the con. But I was made staff, so I could forever be able to attend working. And so I was on for quite a while.
You introduced yourself a lot more than I expected. I only did a small, tiny.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Excuse
That's
me.
fine.
Miss Susan Deer, aren't you the guest of honor for this event as well as Anthrocon 2022? Make sure to ask her.
Also 2020.
Our longest serving guest of honor.
Tied.
Domestic.
Yes.
Because hindsight is 2020. Yes, that is absolutely true.
I'm going to take you all back to 1997. Yes, I was not the only person sitting up here. It was there. They had a bunch of kids starting a furry convention in upstate New York. Actually, not even upstate New York. Albany, New York. There was a bunch of kids from RPI said, hey, we could probably run a furry convention. It will be fun.
Now, at that point in time, there was only one dedicated furry con. There was Conference on the West Coast. There was nothing on the East Coast.
Well, wait a minute.
A couple of things that started and stopped, but the thing was you would go to a sci-fi con that had a furry track. There would be accented programming and maybe some room parties and other things. So, like, for example, there was no Midwest, but there was... DuckCon was the sci-fi con in Chicago that had the furry track. And so to start a dedicated furry con was a thing.
Well, there was a dedicated furry con on the East Coast. It grew out of PhilCon, sort of. The story of what was originally called Conference East, then became called Furtasticon, then became called something else, is an entire story hour in and of itself and requires me to say things that our lawyer sitting over there is wildly gesticulating, saying, do not say on camera.
Look for the comic book next year.
Yes.
We will not speak ill of the dead
We will
unless
not
we
speak
really
ill of
want
the dead
to.
unless they come back to life, in which case we shoot them in the head. So, anyway, 1997, I drove up to Albany from Philadelphia, my home, and it was adorable because I had been volunteering and staffing at conventions for like 17 years prior to that, and it was just totally sweet watching these folk, learning for themselves why you don't run a furry convention. And at one point, again, I was hardly even known in the fandom at the time. We had the art auction, and in those days, the art auction was the absolute, that was the central piece. Remember those days when the art auction was what people were there to see?
It's a quick sideways. There was no online purchase. There was no Patreon. There was no way to get art other than to go to a furry con.
Yeah.
You would track down where your favorite artist was, and you'd buy bundles of black and white copies of their art because things like a scanner were exceptionally rare. So the art auction, original pieces that there would never be a copy, often it was your only place to see it. And then if you really wanted it, that's where you got it.
And if you really wanted it, you had to plan that ahead of time. There was no instant way to know, hey, this person's going to be there, or to them to announce, hey, I'm going to be at such and such.
My first con, cell phones. My first con, I'm going to go meet internet people. There's no phone to track me. I don't tell anyone. I get in a car. I go sleep on the floor of a room. I did all the bad
I'm going to go drive with strangers across state boundaries.
Where am I going to go statistically to my death? It's but it'll be fun.
But
well, okay. I went to the art auction because that was the central piece. Their auctioneer did not show up. There's another story, and again, liability, lawyer waving to me. The auctioneer did not appear at the convention. So, I was sitting in the audience, and the art was there, the audience was there, everything was ready to go, just no auctioneer. And after about 15 minutes, one of the art show staff made a brave, Medal of Honor worthy attempt to start the auction himself. The problem was this poor fellow suffered paralyzing stage fright. He got up there, and you could, from 6 rows back, I could see him trembling. He was drenched in sweat. Eyes bugging out of his head. And he got up, he said, okay, the first item is by Terry Smith. It's just a ringtail. The bid is $100. Okay, $100 set aside. The next item is by Rog Minotaur. Okay, sold. This went on for about
I haven't heard in a while.
5 pieces. And it broke my heart. And after the 5th piece, I said to myself, okay, I've been going to lots of these auctions. And any performer, any entertainer learns from those who had come before. I had watched the likes of Phil Folio do auctions at furry conventions. I had seen Joe Mayhew, the late Joe Mayhew, God rest his soul. And I said, okay, I could probably do this. So I went up and I tapped the guy. I said, could I try one? And he said, please. So I got up and I said, okay, what would Phil Folio do? Okay, the first answer is, what would Phil Folio do? So I did what I had seen them do, and apparently it worked. We got bids. And this guy said, do the rest, do the rest, do the rest.
That's a very long way to say that you're a ham actor and loud on stage.
I'm a ham and a loud on stage, yes. But that's how I started my whole career, if you will, of being an auctioneer.
Yep.
So that's where it began, out of sheer needed to be done.
Well, and that's how small cons are usually started by people that want to get a party or something that's gotten out of hand working. And then it's like, it has trouble, and you get that nucleus of people who will come in and fix things that are problems and just make it work because they want the con to work. If you have enough of those people, the con lives. Yes. So if you're ever starting a new con, you watch them, con starts, die. About the 3rd one, it goes on forever. Mm-hmm. That's, God bless, that people will step up and do the work.
So, Sue, since you have reminded me that I was not the only old person at that convention.
Yeah, your mom was there, right?
Actually, no. She did not
Grandma
go
Cup.
that year.
Well, Jim Grote was there. Does that count?
We're not going to mention names. No names. We did not mention the name of Jim Grote. That is not mentioned. It was
no
not
one would
said
ever
on
talk
here.
about Jim Grote.
No.
You mean about throwing soda cans out of the 10th floor window into the pavement at the people?
Excuse us. The lawyer
has
is waving
stood up.
at us again. By the way, Jim is a dear old friend of mine. It's all in fun. We love you to pieces, my dear fellow. I hope you're watching. We're just ragging on him because we like him. Or at least I do. I don't know about you. Anyhow, so do you remember anything from those very, very early halcyon days of Albany Anthrocon?
Ooh, let's see. I remember haunted elevators.
Well, that's become a tradition.
I remember not sleeping the entire weekend, and I was about 24. And that's about the only time I've ever been able to do that.
We violated all the rules.
Yep.
You know,
yeah, we did.
Eat the food in the con suite,
We
sleep
did.
on the floor, don't get any sleep.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And I remember just going in as a complete baby. Like, you know, I heard about it on IRC, and they're like, hey, we're going to go do this thing, and it's in Albany. And I'm like, great.
Excuse me a second. For you young people, Internet Relay Chat. Look it up. Sorry, go on.
God damn it.
Sorry.
It's
go
Boomer
on.
Instant Messenger. You're fine.
Back in our day.
Wait, but you didn't drive.
No, I didn't drive. The folks on this channel said, do you want to go with us? We're going to go to Albany. We're going to go to this convention thing. And I'm like, people I just met about a month ago or so, online only, get in a car with complete strangers, go across the state lines. Okay. Yeah. My parents won't know where I am. Yeehaw. Don't do this, kids.
Please don't.
You have no excuse now.
Well, Albany Anthrocon was nice in 1997. Again, they had me as guest of honor in 1998, and when I came home, I was chairman. I got home and said, hey, I'm chairman. Wait. And I still don't know what the hell happened.
I came home from that first year being put on programming staff
amazing.
as someone who could draw.
Yes.
You're like, oh, you're going to do a panel next year. I'm like, I'm going to do a what? What's a panel?
Okay, 1997 was how many people? I know we don't have the exact numbers.
We
It
are
was
guessing
somewhere around 100.
About 100 to 150.
Yeah.
Okay, and 1998.
We
I have
think
pictures.
about 300, 350.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yep.
I've got some pictures
Nowadays,
from
that's
that
a
very
party.
first one, and I think from the second one.
Now, after 1998, when I got home, the whole board is like, yay, you're chairman now. I said, okay, if you want me to keep being chairman, we got to make some changes here. For one thing, if you want this thing to keep going, you can't run it like a bunch of kids having a fraternity party. It's going to die. You've got to run it like a business.
Where's Alkali?
Where's Alkali? Speaking of kids having a fraternity party. You've got to run this like a business. So
He's off
on
drinking.
June 30th,
He's not here.
1998, I incorporated Anthrocon Incorporated in Pennsylvania as a 501c7 nonprofit organization. I was advised by a lawyer who was around before our current lawyer was even born. And thank you. Yeah, Boozy's over here making faces at me. So
He doesn't really have to make them.
I also told the crew, I said, okay, now listen, I told you this was going to happen. By the way, keep rolling. This is part of the show. When we started, the sun was like 6 feet behind us. And I was like, guys, should we like start going now because it's going to like get hot? And there we go.
Are we still looking at the same cameras?
Speaking of getting hot, I just sat down. This is a black seat. I'm going to stand up again.
Yeah.
Excuse me for
Yeah.
just a second.
Already got
Yay! I'm going to stay standing for about 30 seconds because that's a black seat.
Already got the sweaty bum.
Yes.
Sweaty bum.
Okay, thermodynamics. I said to the team, we're going to have to move this to Philadelphia, which is where I was living. Why? I said, and I quote, there is no way I am going to drive 4 hours to chair my own convention.
Well, it worked for a while.
Well, I found us the magnificent Hilton Valley Forge Hotel outside of Philadelphia, which was a huge, monstrous, massive hotel. And then a train came across the bridge. Huge, monstrous, massive hotel. And I said to the board, this will be great, guys. There is okay. We have more space here than we could ever possibly need.
Now, to
Do
be
you know what I remember most about that hotel?
What's that?
We had one, maybe two elevators.
Yeah, maybe two.
And
One and a half.
By like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the first day, it was already fenchy.
Yeah.
It
Oh
was,
God!
it was so
Yeah, the
full of
AC
BO.
didn't
It
work
was
in the
so full
zoo
of
area.
BO.
Oh my God!
It smelled so bad.
It's like being outside in the sun at Pittsburgh. You just sweat, you know.
Yes, and it catches up to you quickly. Yeah, we have memories that I remember that. Okay, we're still not mentioning any names. The first year we were at Valley Forge, the day after the dealer's room opened, the first day of the convention, a dealer came running up to me and said, "Oh my God, shut up!
That's what.
Oh my God, overnight, I had $3,000 worth of T-shirts stolen from my dealer table."
There are watershed moments when you are when you're
Yep.
running a convention where you become staff, and there are things like when you have a theft, when you're dealing with banning someone. These moments that are new to you. I remember this one.
Yes.
Our first ban happened in the same hotel. We'll get to that, but
Well, we had to run out and buy lengths of chain. Benny was with me. We bought lengths of chain, 12 padlocks that all had the same key, and we had to negotiate with the hotel to allow us to chain the doors of the dealer's room shut. Because, this horrible theft happened, so we must secure the room at night. It was about 6 months later that word reached me that this exact same dealer at another convention had $3,000 worth of T-shirts stolen. Draw your own conclusions.
multiple conventions.
But it had a sushi restaurant.
It was not just a sushi restaurant.
Now, when we went into that situation, we had a problem because we did not have equipment to do things like art shows and other things. When we took over and brought the convention down and tried to run it like a real convention, we needed help.
We needed help.
Right, we needed help.
Forgot. We didn't have equipment. We're going into this blind. I had been volunteering at PhilCon, the Philadelphia Science Fiction Society convention, for many years. And I was very good friends with two members of their convention committee.
They had a furry track for many years until.
They had a furry track until, and this is another one of those things that we don't talk about on camera. Buy me a drink sometime and I'll tell you. A singular individual caused a rift between PhilCon and the furries. There had been no animosity between the two until this individual caused it to happen.
And exploited it.
Oh my God. So I went to a PhilCon committee meeting. And I was introduced, and I said to them, "I would like your assistance in starting a furry convention in Philadelphia." And there was an uproar, an outcry. And I thought, oh dear, this is not going so well. And one fellow stood up and he said, "You're going to have to get down on your knees and beg us for our help." So I said, all right. "I would like your assistance in starting a furry convention in Philadelphia." "I did that for you people." And they were quite taken aback, and they said, "Holy crap, he did it."
Well, who was the person who spoke up?
I don't remember. It was the heavyset guy with the beard.
Oh, that
Oh,
guy.
that guy at
Yeah.
Philadelphia PhilCon. Yeah, that narrows it down.
Oh, wait. He wore a beanie.
Oh. Okay, so it was his brother. Got it.
Yeah. Well,
But someone spoke up and said part of PhilCon's charter, to their credit, was to help other organizations start. They had written that in their charter. That con's been around forever.
PhilCon is arguably the oldest science fiction convention. It was started by the Philadelphia Science Fiction Society, which was started by a bunch of college kids with the names like Ray Bradbury, Isaac Asimov, little kids like that. But it was started in the 30s, and as far as I know, it's still going.
Yep.
But bless their hearts, they made Anthrocon happen in Pennsylvania. For the longest time, the arch panels were all labeled PhilCon. And as we got bigger, some were labeled PhilCon, some were labeled Anthrocon. Then after a couple of years, 90% of them were labeled Anthrocon, and a couple of them were labeled PhilCon.
Yeah, we were sharing equipment.
Yeah.
Well, and that we moved to the Adams Mark because we outgrew the Hilton Valley Forge.
Yep. Okay, that was the thing. Remember how I told the crew?
1 year.
This is all the space we're ever going to need. We outgrew the hotel that first year.
1 year.
We stayed in that hotel the second year.
And
Yes.
It was like, okay, this is simply not going to work.
You ever try and get on an elevator with too many furries and a bunch of fursuits all at once? That was
No.
basically the open space in that hotel that year. It's
we,
just like,
we invented that, We invented that.
Oh
that
my
was an Anthrocon
God.
invention. Actually, I'm going to back up a moment. You mentioned the restaurant, the Japanese restaurant, Kobe.
Yes, I
Kobe.
did. Miss Kobe.
Okay, when you are running a convention, you can interact with your venue, your partners in two ways. You can say, we're paying you people, you owe us, you have to.
Or you can drink all their sake.
Or you can drink all their sake and put their kids through college.
yeah.
If you treat your venue like partners, like, okay, you are part of our success, it pays off.
That was one of the best lessons in running a con I think we ever had. Like, a convention center sells things very easily. There's space. People want the space. Setting up chairs. Each of the departments sell things. The thing that is hardest for a convention center to sell is the food.
Yes.
No one wants to pay $12 for whatever box lunch that gets trucked in. So if you wheel and deal with them, so we used to always do staff dinner.
Yeah.
And staff dinner for Anthrocon was never gourmand, shall we say, because we had the convention catering services do it. And we would pay for that. And then magically, other things would be severely discounted because
Yes.
that way at the end of the year, the catering people made their quota.
Yeah. The catering
And so-
fee was basically their bread and butter, if you will.
Shut up!
Yeah, right. I remember
So-
1 year, I think the entire electrical panel hookup for the dealer's room as well as for the
Oh,
video
Lordy.
truck was comped. Like one of the biggest line items in our bill was comped
Yeah.
because we ordered a meal for our staff.
That was
It's like,
part of the reason.
Yeah, talk and work. Well, okay, yeah, we didn't blow the power out of that hotel.
Let
but
me cover that. What I was going to mention about this restaurant is it is wonderful to have a good relationship with your venue because my first year as chairman, let's face it, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I've been staff at conventions for 17 years. Look at me, I know everything. I didn't know dick. And I was like frazzled.
Didn't get to meet him.
I looked like 10 years older than I was, which was younger than I am now. At some point, I don't even remember, at some point during the convention, the barman from that Japanese restaurant came and found me as I was running around and said, "Hey, Sam, come here." You remember Joe?
I remember Joe.
I remember
said,
Joe.
I said, what? I'm busy. He said, "When did you last eat?" I said, "I don't have time for this." He actually took my coat. He said, "Answer me. When did you last eat?" I said, "I don't know." He literally dragged me down to the restaurant, and the staff forcibly sat me down at a table and brought me dinner and made me eat it and comped it. Now, that was such a gesture of human kindness. I have never forgotten those people.
And you learn very quickly as I'm secondary. I'm like directors. No one knows who the hell I am. One of my jobs in the background is everyone knows who the con chair is. And everyone will take their problem to the con chair.
Yes.
No matter how not appropriate to be dealt with at the con chair level.
Thank you.
So very often, our job was to kind of head that off and defend Sam. Like literally, he's in bed. No one bothers him kind of thing. As a matter of fact, some very smart con chairs that I know have hand signals of if they're stuck in a conversation, that hand signal means get me the hell away from this. Yes. Sometimes it's a radio signal. Of course, you wear the earpiece. You have that ability to go, oh no, I must leave. You know?
You're right. You're right. If you
But
were
if he
talking-
wins,
if you're talking to any convention staffer and they start getting like an itch, leave them alone. They're trying to tell people things. That last year in 2000, in King of Prussia, our dance, the Anthrocon dance, was one light bar and a boom box. That was the dance.
Oh
in
my
2000.
God. And we still did damage to the room.
After 2000, we needed a bigger hotel.
well, hold on.
Oh, wait.
Before we move on
Yeah.
to the next hotel, we have to still tell the story of the origin of the zoo.
We should.
So-
Do you want to take that?
Yeah, I can.
I'd forgotten.
Buried in that Sheraton Hotel was a small sort of cafe area. And at that point, we knew we were going to have the entire hotel. And we said, okay, about this area, we're tightly packed in here. Can we use this for something? Because the one thing that hotel really lacked, other than general space, was a general space.
Yeah, a social
place
space.
for people to hang out. And so we talked about this on the board, and I said, well, what if, if we can get them to just give us that area, we could have it as like kind of a
An
lounge
open-
area. And then they said, well, what will we call it? I said, well, let's call it the zoo.
So, before he speaks, this is the secret of furry cons, right?
Yeah.
Get the hell out of the way of the people.
Yeah.
The people are coming to see each other and have fun if you can get badges on them and get the hell out of the way of it. So many other things can go wrong. It'll be a great con.
Yeah.
The social space is the furry con.
Yes.
Almost always.
There's two things that I need to add to that. First off, I don't think Sue was on the board at the time. When
Oh,
on
that
the
was my
staff
first
list,
year, yeah.
She made this comment, and I think somebody said, "Hey, she's got good ideas. Put her on the board."
Yeah.
That's pretty much how it happened.
I was artist track leader. at that
Congratulations,
point.
you're on the board now.
Congratulations, yeah. So the first year that we were at the Sheraton, I was
It's a Sheraton now. It was Hilton back then.
I think it's a hole in the ground now.
Actually, it's a DoubleTree now.
Oh, whatever the hell it was.
It was our hotel.
It was our hotel. And I was only artist track lead. And I became the programming director
By
about
attrition.
2 weeks before the following year that we were at that hotel.
Oh, I remember
But
that.
you did so well. No need to complain.
It was under duress.
Well, you can't say it was stressful. We gave you 2 weeks.
2 bottles of Pepto-Bismol, and not the small ones I drank before that con.
I drank something else.
Before the con. Yeah, I should have had that instead. But,
Yeah.
2 bottles of Pepto-Bismol.
If
Whatever.
they made alcoholic Pepto-Bismol, we'd be in business.
So, yeah, that was the year I ran programming. And there was another thing I did that I don't like to toot my own horn, but that schedule was the first schedule that we had.
Oh, the
that
skeleton.
had padding built into it
Yes.
on the front end and on the back.
Major innovation. Maybe we should have gaps between the panels so people can physically exit and re-enter the
And
room.
rooms can be reset and all that jazz.
Well,
So-
and
and
was
that
that the
worked
first time
really
the
well.
skeleton showed up?
The skeleton.
Or was that an
showed-
Adams Mark schedule?
I think that was an Adams Mark schedule because
Okay.
we had
You're-
reliable people.
You're going to have to
in
explain
certain
that now that
areas.
I brought it
Yeah.
up. Otherwise,
Before
they
we
have...
go to that, you told the story of the zoo. You told the story I told you. I don't know if you ever were told the real story.
Oh, no.
Maybe it's time.
Are you the zookeeper? Who's the key master?
Are you the key master? Yes.
Zoo. Okay, the story that Sue
Kids, look it
told
up.
is essentially correct. There was a tiny detail in that the hotel manager had just renovated the lobby.
Oh, God.
Had put in a $1 million solid marble
That's
floor.
The
right.
equines. Oh, my
He
God.
did not want a bunch of people in his amazing lobby. It's kind of like when you buy a new car, you don't want to drive it because you might mess it up. He didn't want people in the lobby. So I said, well, you got to put my people somewhere. So we said, okay, and we negotiated having that little breakfast restaurant.
I remember
That
part.
$1 million lobby sucked anyway.
I remember
It was
part of
not a
the. You
good
remember the
place to
discussion?
hang
We were
out.
talking about this in the lobby with him to get it started before we finalized it, and it's at the con. And there was a couple of wonderful fursuiters that had the full equine done as if it was digitigrade. Look it up in a dictionary.
We're not
kids.
going to mention Whitehorse.
Okay, fair enough. But what they had is they had hinged, what do you call those? Horseshoes on the bottom.
Steel
So that when they
horseshoes.
actually stepped, there was a big ass clop sound. They'd put a sounder in it and everything. So he's sitting there saying, "We've got this brand new marble lobby that
And we
we've
went,
put
"Oh,
together."
no.
And here
you look
comes
over and there's
Whitehorse.
Clonk, clonk, clonk. The sound of metal and wood smacking into this marble floor as they go by. We're like,
Yeah.
oh boy.
Like, oh, no.
God, those were nice costumes too.
They were
They
great
were.
costumes, and we left that hotel right away.
Not for marble, no.
Because we needed more space. We had sold out 2 years in a row. We had overflow space.
I remember we talked about in a pipe dream that down the road someday maybe we could afford the hotel that PhilCon was in, the giant facility in Philadelphia that was bigger than all the others, the Adams Mark.
The Adams Mark, which was the premier convention hotel, that thing was colossal.
And what
It's
did you
such a
say?
It had like 500 rooms and tens of thousands of square feet of
And-
space. And I said to the board, guys, we got it. I got a contract with the Adams Mark. This is more space than we could ever possibly need.
Stop saying that!
You not only looked like Bill Gates, you talked like him. And look where it got us.
So we went to the Adams Mark.
Oh God, and Elevator Con continued.
Okay, we went to the Adams Mark, and it had 4 elevators. And I remember saying, I think I might have even been to Sue. Remember the problems we had with the elevators at the Hilton? We won't have those anymore.
Oh, cut to that video that Benny has.
Oh my God, all 4 elevators. We crashed them.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, we crashed them.
First
Oh,
year.
Jesus.
I love
Wait,
that guy.
didn't we end up with names
I wish I knew who
on
that
each
guy
of the
was. Yes, we
elevators?
did.
Yes.
I only ever remember Bob. What were the other 3?
Okay, the security crew, named the 4 elevators. They were Hades, Sir Speedy, Confused, and Bob.
Confused, occasionally you would put your floor and you'd go up and the elevator would just pick a floor and stop and you
Yes.
had to get out.
Yeah, and that was it.
That was it. That was
End
confused.
of the road.
Bob
Sir
would only
Speedy-
go up like 4 floors and would come right back down.
No, Bob would go up 4 floors, and when the doors opened, it would be doing
would be
this.
bobbing.
Remember,
Bob,
coming to
yes.
an equilibrium.
Sir
Sir
Speedy.
Speedy, you could get up to the 23rd floor in 16 seconds, no matter what button you pushed.
You'd have a flat head when you
Yeah.
got there.
Yeah.
And Hades, you would push your floor, the elevator would go to that floor, the inside doors would open, the outside doors would
not.
and you'd hear the elevator laughing.
Oh God.
Sometimes they worked, though.
So that
Sometimes.
actually we became StairCon for a while because it was the fire doors were easily accessible to the outside. So the air conditioned hotel, but the stairwell is
Well,
outside.
that was the year that we our theme was furries in flight.
Just get on Speedy.
And
You'll
at
be
closing
fine.
ceremonies, we were presented with a poster: "Furries in flights of stairs."
Furries in Flight 2001.
Oh my God.
That was amazing.
Yeah.
It was our first year at the colossal, gigantic Adams Mark, which had more space than we would ever need. That was the year that we had Dan DeCarlo as our guest of honor, our first massive, big-time,
dear God.
world-famous, legendary artist.
I remember the radio call. Oh God, we didn't kill the guest of honor, did we?
Okay, as programming director, this was the first guest of honor I had to talk to. It's Dan DeCarlo. I remember the first phone call I had with him. I was just peeing my pants scared to talk to this man.
This is a
I had
professional.
long since learned that other artists are just people. They really are. And, but yeah, at the time, scared baby programming director. Oh, yeah. Are you empty?
Alkali!
What?
Do your job!
Statute of limitations. I stole this a while ago.
Anthrocon has been, okay, one of the hallmarks of Anthrocon, it was a big change. We invented this. One of the hallmarks of Anthrocon is treating our guests of honor like they are actually honored guests.
Oh my God, the limo.
Before that, the tradition was at conventions, they would send what I called the fan with the van. Whoever
Oh.
happened to have a car available would go and pick up the guest. I sent limousines for our guests of honor because, let's face it, they are honored guests. We have to treat them like that.
Also, a limousine in Philadelphia to the airport and back is pretty comparable to a taxi ride.
It is. It's like $120. Do it. Well, also, if we're going to have a limousine, we are going to have an elegant, almost black tie dinner the night before the convention. I'll present the board of directors. We'll present the guests of honor in this high-class restaurant, and it's oh so professional. And here we had the legendary Dan DeCarlo, his magnificent, beautiful wife Josie, who was Josie of Josie and the Pussycats. She was the model.
Very French.
Yep.
She was French.
Very French.
And we were sitting, as I recall, I was at the head of the table. I was the chairman. Dan was sitting immediately to my left. Susan was sitting to my right. And Sue probably remembers, I said, yes, so this is Anthrocon. Yes, we are the highest class furry convention. You won't find any. Yes, we're so very, very proud to have an artist of your caliber to totally match what we have here. And Dan just sat quietly, and when I took a breath, he looked at Sue and said,
What kind of drunk are you?
and I went, and Susan said,
And I said, well, if I get to the end of this bottle, you're going to find out.
and that's when Dan said, bring us another bottle.
Yep.
And that's when Josie, this sweet, charming, elegant French lady said, oh yes, that is my dad. He loves the pretty girls. Even now, when we go out, he is always pinching me on the derriere and putting his hand. I'm like, there's a book you can find online, The Pin-Up Art of Dan DeCarlo.
Oh.
You will find out what he was into very quickly. There's no question.
Shh, you'll confuse them.
He was what my little old mother called a horn dog.
He also, one of the mornings while he was at our convention, forgot to take his heart meds, and he
Oh,
had
Jesus.
an episode sitting at the dealer's table. And so we're thinking, oh, dear God, the rumor of FurryCon has killed a major guest
Well,
of honor.
It was worse. He was feeling bad at the
Game
dealer
over,
table,
man,
so he
game
went up to
over.
his room on the 23rd floor. And I got the call, Mr. DeCarlo doesn't look good. He's not feeling well. I ran to the elevator. Oh, holy crap. 23 flights of stairs.
Oh, my God. Well, the limo. Tell him about
Bill Holbrook.
Bill Holbrook, yes.
Oh, yes.
And his kids.
Bill Holbrook. If you're unfamiliar with Bill Holbrook, shame on you.
Bill, if you're watching, hi.
We love you, Bill. Bill is responsible for penning what is currently, I believe, the world's longest-running webcomic. Kevin and Kel, which is a furry webcomic, has been running for more than, 23, 24 years now? Continuously.
At least.
The story... It's followed basically the original characters of the story now have grandchildren who are grown up. It's astonishing. So we wanted Bill Holbrook. Bill is a down-home Georgia boy. There is not a pretentious bone in his body. He is extremely modest, very deferential, a proper Southern gentleman.
Unless you get a Long Island iced tea in him. But that's another story.
That's a different story.
Or ask him professional
different
news
story.
on his competitors.
Different story. We'll get to that
Jim
later.
Davis hasn't been drawing Garfield for
Anyway,
years. Uh-oh.
I
Try to make a subtle joke with your spouse and involved and
let's not talk about your marital bliss on camera
I know.
unless people pay for it. So, I had told Bill he was coming with his whole family, and all I told him was, we'll send a driver to pick you up because I'm sure Bill was familiar with the fan with the van. So they arrived, Mr. and Mrs. Holbrook and their two little children, little Haviland, who was 9 years old. She's got kids of her own now. Holy
Jesus,
shit.
what?
Oh my God. Little Haviland, little tiny 9-year-old Haviland. They're standing
Somebody
there
pass
and
me the Metamucil.
yeah, they're at baggage claim, and Haviland looked outside. Remember, this is pre-2001. She looked outside, and there was this gigantic white, full-size stretch limousine, and she said, "Daddy, is that for us?" And Bill said, "Oh no, darling, those are for important people." And just then, the uniformed chauffeur walked up. "Mr. Holbrook, and ushered them in. Now, I wasn't there to see it, but I am told that the entire trip, Haviland's eyes were as big as buttons. Daddy's important. You cannot buy guest relations like that.
Oh,
and then they saw their room.
yes.
The one with the 3 zip codes?
Yes, that's the one. That's the one. Yeah.
I do remember that. So that for the whole weekend, for the whole con, they had the good suite, and then they stayed over a week to go tour Philadelphia, as one does with children. But that was on his dime, so they had to leave the gigantic suite and go down to the smaller room. Haviland didn't like that as
And
much.
they were sad.
I really would have loved to have kept them in the suite, but Anthrocon did not have the kind of money then that it's
No.
got now. How you doing?
Hello.
So we were perfectly set in the Adamsmark because we stayed there forever because it had more space than we could ever possibly need. Until after that first year when we completely oversold it, didn't have enough room in the dealer's room.
1 year.
1 year, the very first damn year. We stayed in the Adamsmark until 2004, and I was talking with, get a room, you two. I was talking with the board, and I said, okay, guys, we need bigger space. This is, okay, we just got to move. And we started looking around for another venue. Now, our crew, ladies and gentlemen.
I love Pride Month.
Now, I believe folks have probably heard in my story hour how Anthrocon wound up in Pittsburgh. That's the story for another day and another panel.
Does
But-
this rag smell like chloroform
Does it
to you?
smell like chloroform? That's how we're in Pittsburgh. But
I woke up a Steelers fan. I
they
don't
brought me
understand.
out here. That is, Visit Pittsburgh brought me out here, and they showed me this incredible David L. Lawrence Convention Center, the West End, and I was enchanted. And I wrote to the board, I said, guys, this is great. There is more space here than we could ever possibly need. I'm not
Stop
allowed
doing
to
that.
say that. It is actually now written into the Anthrocon Charter. I'm not allowed to say that to the board.
Let me tell you how glad I am I retired in 2004.
Yeah, I have respect here. Sue and I both retired because we had to move cross country. But
Yeah.
I took the con up to about half the size now. It
Yep.
blows my mind how big of an
Yeah.
event it is now.
I can't imagine doing the job now.
Okay, when we look back, when Anthrocon had 1,200 people and we were saying, this is such a huge convention, how do we manage?
More staff.
More
chloroform rags.
Well, it was the 30th of November of 2004 at 10 o'clock p.m. Funny that I remember that. That my phone rang. Okay, these guys will tell you, don't frickin' call me. I don't like people calling me on the phone.
Nope.
Because I'm busy. My phone rang and I grabbed it. And, okay, when I pick up the phone, I don't say hello. I don't
What?
say Conway Residence. I say, what? And this voice said, Uncle Kage, what's this I hear that they're going to tear down the Adamsmark? And I said, okay, you listen to me, you son of a bitch. I'm a busy guy. Don't bother me. And I slammed the phone down. And then 2 minutes later, the phone rang again. What? A different voice. Hey, Uncle Kage, I was just watching the news. They say they're going to tear down the Adamsmark. And at this point, I started to get that feeling. You know that one that feels like there's a cat trapped in your rib cage trying to claw its way out?
Uh-oh.
So I turned on the news and they're talking about the flyers or something. So with no information, I thought, I shall go to the internet. I shall go to Furry IRC, which is Internet Relay Chat, by the way. It's what we had.
We said that already.
Yeah, so they know
You all
now.
right?
Now they know.
Okay.
I will go to Furry IRC. I will log in and I will say, hello, everyone. This is Uncle Kage. Has anybody heard this? The very second my name showed up, I just
True.
disconnect, turned the computer off, and went to bed. And the next day I called the hotel and said, okay, what? And the guy at the hotel said, yep, that's it. They called us in yesterday and said, that's it. We're closing the hotel down. They're going to tear it down and build a Target here. And I said,
and we learned a valuable contract lesson.
Yeah,
Our
oh my
contract,
God,
if
yes.
for some reason the hotel could not host us, they would provide alternate venue. And they said, we would be glad to host this event at an Adams Mark in, like, what, Kansas City?
camera turn over here real fast. Boosie's doing the striptease over here.
We're going to tease you by not showing you.
That's what I learned. Because I said, guys, I got a contract. And the guy said, well, that's great. I don't have a job. Okay, well, that kind of shut me down. I called their corporate headquarters and said, excuse me, I have a contract. And they said, well, that's great. We don't have a hotel. I said, well, you got to give me a hotel. And they said, show us in the contract where it says we have to give you a hotel. And I said,
Guess what was in the contract from then on?
it now says, if you read Anthracon's contract with the Westin, there's a phrase that says, there will be a goddamn hotel on this site. Those are the actual words. That's a legal phrase. I had a lawyer look at it. Why is he running away?
Because we saw his nipples.
We did. Those
All
are like
three of 'em.
salami. It's amazing, right? Sorry. So yes, then we were suddenly in Pittsburgh. Suddenly Pittsburgh. Sue, you've been too quiet. There must be something that here. Okay, here's what they want to hear, and here's what I don't want to hear. There is probably something that even now I don't know about. This is your opportunity, and I promise not to hit Benny.
Spill some dirt.
So, the story officially goes that you recruited me for programming director.
Yes.
I'm going to tell you now you got played.
I remember. No,
Tell. What do you remember?
I remember saying, she looks competent, make her a director. I want one of those next year. I want one of those. Guys, make it happen. I want one of those next year, okay? Yeah. I want one of those without paying more money.
And that's the end of the story. No.
So, okay, so
No.
what happened?
So, the person who was programming director at the time, I recall that you and she did not get along very well. That there was some friction.
Friction. Like a match being struck. Yeah, there was.
And the bomb nearby. Yes. Something like that.
Yeah, there was friction.
And, you know, I had ideas for how maybe programming could be improved and what we could do. And she would talk to me and tell me how unhappy she was. And I, being a good associate and friend, said to her, "It seems like you're miserable. Are you having you're just having that much trouble with Sam?" Well, it seemed, I don't know what to tell you. She's like, "I'm going to quit." And I said, "Well, it's about 3 weeks before the con. Do you really think that's a good idea?" And I thought to myself, that's a great idea. I mean, okay, yeah, she carried the con that far, and she was good at her job, but she really wanted an individual fiefdom, and that was really a problem. That was really a problem for the con. And so I said, all right, well, if that's how you feel, I mean, you do what you think you need to do. Meanwhile, I had been going to movie nights on Tuesday nights. I know this guy. So,
Wait a minute. You bought me booze one night.
yeah.
Several nights.
Keep talking. It's starting to come back. Keep talking.
So anyway, 2 weeks before the con, she ups and quits in a power move. And I get a phone call from this gentleman here
Convince you.
to convince me that I was the most qualified. I'd never done it before.
Okay, wait a minute.
That I had all of the necessary information already. I had the schedule and everything and knew what was going on. Okay, yeah, that's true.
Okay, it's now coming back to me. I was taken out by the movie night crew for my birthday, which is in early June, and I remember Sue bought me a lot of sake. We went to a Japanese restaurant. Somebody at some point I remember saying to me, hey, maybe you should talk to Sue about being programming director. I was like, yeah, talk to Sue. So I remember contacting, Sue, hi, I know this is really short notice, and I really don't want to, but we need and do you think you could, so you're telling me that you planned all this, you bitch?
You know that scene where, you know how George Washington...
Planned is a strong word.
You know how George Washington got his job as commander-in-chief, right?
Yes.
They were having this convention. They said, we need someone to lead our armed forces. And Washington, standing in the background, 6 foot tall, wearing a uniform of his own design, just kind of go, and then, hey, Washington's here. She pulled a George Washington on you.
George Washington on you, yeah.
I think we are running
Now,
close on time. We're getting down to final thoughts.
Yeah.
Oh, final.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, we only got as far as, okay, never mind.
I was startled, though.
We only
wasn't
got as far
expecting
as one
it.
bottle, apparently.
I wasn't expecting it 2 weeks before.
No,
I really wasn't.
Trust me, I wasn't.
I wasn't kidding about the 2 bottles of Pepto.
In the time we have left, in the early days, we used to have a feedback session at the end of the convention, a Q&A. Okay, this is your chance to tell us what you think. You notice we don't do that anymore.
Well, we did that because many conventions would have a follow-up panel and no one would attend it.
Yep.
Or they'd hold it on the 4th Thursday after the con
Yeah.
or something.
So we decided we want to hear feedback from our attendees. I'll tell you what, Benny, what's the one you remember most? Feedback from our attendees.
God. Tumbles did make an appearance.
Who?
The actual Tumbles the Stair Dragon at that. Okay, I think there's someone using that name now. The original Tumbles the Stair Dragon was a very kind euphemism you used on stage rather than publicly shaming someone who, when using stairs, tripped and fell up the stairs.
Fell up 9 stairs. I still don't know how.
I have no fault for someone falling. I have no fault for accidents. However...
By the way, can you still hear us over the sound of Congress?
Okay, that's close,
never
Mike.
mind. Yep.
So, however, they specifically wanted us to alter the design of the steps in the hotel.
Yeah.
And we're like, you have a moment where you can put your hand over the mic and kind of lean and say to each other, it's like, weren't the stairs like Babylonian in design? I don't know if we can go talk to them.
Mm-hmm.
That one sticks in my head forever.
The one that sticks in my head is the year that we finally realized that having a con suite was not scaling. You can have a con suite where you have chips and soda and stuff when you've got 700 people. When you've got 3,000 people and you're bringing in pallets of chips and soda and trying to put them into a single hotel suite, it just doesn't work. So we announced that year we're not going to be able to have the con suite anymore. And that next year, a gentleman got up at the feedback session and he was incensed. Why is there no con suite? And I explained, well, sir, 700 and 3,000 in pallets and everything, it just didn't work. And he put his hands on his hips and he said, and I quote, I paid $45 to be here. The least you can do is give me free food. At that point, I remember hands holding on to my coat, holding me in my chair, and somebody saying, next question.
Well, thank you very much for your feedback. We'll look into the issue. Next question,
So,
please.
do you remember any of those?
I remember when you shaved your head.
Other than that.
I thought you were going to go for when someone brought up the 5-pound chocolate bar.
The 5-pound chocolate bar was awesome.
We have just a couple minutes. I'm going to let you round it out.
Oh,
What?
I remember the first time when, about programming, they have a question. And it's just, there's just too many nice things.
There's
I
too many
can't
cool
see
things
them.
to do. I can't do everything. And I'm like,
I'm sorry. Yeah.
I'll try to do worse next year.
The guy was actually pissing and moaning that there was too much to do. There's too much to do here.
That's a good con.
And then he stood there. Wait. What did I just do?
What did I just say? You see that expression sometimes, like, oh,
Yeah.
I didn't think about that saying that
That's
out loud.
when I made
I'm the
this
asshole in the
sign
room. Oh,
to one of
no.
the security guys. This sign. It's backwards for you. This is the chloroform sign.
Oh.
That's when the security guy came up behind him and... But I believe we're out of time because the guys with the camera are frantically waving their arms and making this sign. So I think we might well be out of time.
And the sun is.
Yeah, and it's caught. You
coming.
notice we've been slowly creeping forward
Yeah.
to keep from burning, and the horrible blazing sky god up there trying to destroy us.
You looked at it.
I did. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been in a very unorganized and stream of consciousness fashion the history of Anthicon from those poor, tormented, wretched souls who experienced it. I am Uncle Kage.
I am Benny.
And I'm Sue Deer.
Thank you very much for your kind attention. If you want more stories like this, we don't have time now, but find me, buy me a drink, and I'll tell you anything you want to know.
Buy us a different drink and you'll get all the dirt.
Bye, everybody.